they're our most valuable part of the program.
Do you think the players learn anything from this as well about maybe not getting this to a point where it can get out in the public to become a distraction? Is that just, of course, they're young men. All of us make mistakes, no matter our age. But is that something that that they can learn from this and vice versa?
I think so. I think, you sure would like when there's emotional peaks and valleys. You would like to be able to talk through it and work through it in a way where there's some privacy. But I think we and I and everyone understands kind of today's climate and world and all of it. And I think just like our guys and our players and just their approach, their their heart being wide open, their wanting to connect, their knowing that this could be said or that could be said, and not really caring to a degree, and just wanting to feel that connection. I think it's pretty strong when you're in the midst of that. And I'm proud of our team, and I think we can learn from this, though, per your point. So I think moving forward, that will be a point.
They are two single-digit players voted on by the teammates, and that's probably
right.
What stunned a lot of people. Love it for 4 years. Is this something that you already have addressed with the team? Did they move on? Did they welcome them back? Is there any kind of issues there?
No, I think a lot of the majority of the guys that I've talked to, all talked about how much they mean to the team, how important they are, how much they, just their attitude, their heart, their energy. And so I know that, we get back together again, we can reconnect and then get going on focusing on the opponent that we've got this week.
Thanks for your time on talking about it. How do you make sure or prevent this being a week-to-week issue based on success? There's going to be these distractions you've dealt with since even when you arrived back in the early part of the year may not change over the next several weeks.
Right. Yeah, I think just spending the time with your players, I think going past, I think all of this, it's bigger than football. It's recognizing, that you never really know what's going on with someone until you reach out to them and check up on them and visit with them and ask them how they're doing and take time outside of football. And I think, that a lot of that is easier said than done when things are clicking with football. When things aren't, is when you're challenged in that piece. But I think nothing's more important than making sure that everyone's in a good space. Everyone knows that we see them, we hear them, we value them. And so I think that's a big takeaway.
Is this something that as a head coach you have to deal with even more so than when you were an assistant coach or coordinator that can take things off your plate?
There was this, though, I think as a coordinator you had it was just on one side of the ball. I think about this is just like the time that we're in, and so I think there's, I think that just the stresses of being away from people, of just not always having the community that you're used to having. I think there was things that we were doing prior that, or things that maybe happened last year, community-wise, whether it was watching tape and eating a pizza together, or watching tape and having Taco Tuesday together, and doing all this stuff where we can't do that anymore. because of COVID protocol and these things, and social distancing, and so it's just that stuff I think piles up, and I think coaches kind of feel the brunt of it. Players definitely do, and we've got to continue to reach out for each other and be there, outside of football.
I asked you this in the postgame about you being able to stretch the offense, and there was a play where I know it was obvious you were about to take a shot downfield and you had no time. Is that something that comes with Coach Fedora learning Charlie learning Coach Fedora, or is there so many moving parts with your offensive line that it's just not something you can do right now?
I think there's been a fair amount of moving parts. I think all of these things are, to a degree, for me and David, hard to talk about just because of I don't want it to sound like it's this or it's that and excuses. But I just, I do feel moving forward that, we just took a test Sunday, and everyone's negative, and we've had a bunch of negative tests back to back, and I think we're going to have, we still have 2 more tests to take, but we're going to have everybody at this game, and so we haven't had that yet, and so again 2 tests out, and then we're going to have everybody at this game where they're practicing the whole week together. And so we haven't had that either, and so I think the ability to do that, and then, but not only that, but then to focus and to really buy the stuff that we're going to use, not just rent it throughout the week, but buy it and own it, and spend the time to rep it and drill it and completely own this play or this series or this package, and then let it loose on Saturday. I think will pay dividends, and there'll be continued improvement.
Does that include Galvin, Xavier, and Christian Morgan?
Yes.
I think I just heard you smile. Physically, I think I heard you just smile.
Yeah.
I know that this has been so up and down. You could never have written a book about a first-year head coach dealing with some of the everyone's dealing with this, but could you have ever thought about writing a book? Could you you might be able to after this year, huh, as the first-year head coach?
Well, I think when you have anytime you have you have adversity, you find out a lot about yourself. You find out about the people that you're with, and you see the good in everybody. And maybe that's oversaid, but it is true. I think we talk about no man is an island, right? And so the connection and the checking in on people, the trying to help out other people really helps yourself. And so that for me is real, and I think this whole thing has allowed that to take place, and I think the connections are strong. But the ability to get our team together and get them gelled, I think there's a lot of improvement from the West Virginia game into the Texas game, and obviously I would have liked there to be even more, but there was improvement. I was in the locker room yesterday after our walkthrough, and I felt that just going from guy to guy, just they talked about the improvement, and they could see it, and they could feel it. And so I think we just have to stay together and keep everybody trending the right way with these tests coming up, and then keep working on the stuff that we're going to be doing in the game. And we've got ourselves a really good team, and we'll show out.
You're a defensive guy. You have to control all of it now as a head coach. How much do you watch what Gary Patterson's done with TCU defensively and admire what he does on that side of the ball?
I do quite a bit. I think, I remember coming up as a coach and always, hey, somebody has Gary Patterson installing this defense on VHS tape, and can I get that, right? Or there's like a DVD of Gary Patterson installing this, or I think it was Coach Glasgow installing this. Dave, do you have that? No, I need to get that. And so then I would watch those clinic tapes, or they're clinicking their players, or they're clinicking. This is from years ago. This is old stuff. This is back when I was at Cal Lutheran and Delta State and stuff, and I'm looking at it, and it's all just the level of detail, the thoughtfulness, the how specific they were, their coaching axioms. I mean, everything was thought out, planned out. There was no freewheeling, and so you had ultimate respect just in the presentation of it, and then obviously, their play. And just watching them now, I know they're working through an identity and getting there and everything, but the level of effort they play with, right, the toughness and the hard edge they play with, right, if they know out of a formation what you're doing, they're going to do everything in their power to stop that. And I think that's really one of the secrets to their success, is that they unabashedly make you left-handed. And so I think it's going to be a challenge for us for sure.
Speaking of Cal Lutheran, I heard when you could play, before you had to end your career, that when you came through a hole to make a tackle, to have contact, Tom Herman last week said that those collisions were as violent as anything he'd ever heard or seen before. You were crazy back then. You played like that, huh?
Oh man, no. Well, I had actually like muscles back then, I guess. That they all went away. My head stayed the same size, but everything else went away.
Yeah.
So life is hard, man.
Are you glad now that are you relieved right now that everything's been cleaned up with Abner Lovett, the team, and you have people back? Is it just kind of like, not that you can take a deep breath in this day and age, but you can maybe take a deep breath and go forward with a normal week?
Yeah, I think, this makes us stronger. I think this all allows us to connect with our people and to spend the time where the time needs to be spent. And so I'm excited. I think I know our team is. I know those two specifically are. And so really looking forward to a good week.
Baylor football coach Dave Aranda on SicEm365 Radio.
At Baylor University, students find their place to shine. They're faithful friends and inspirational leaders. They're championship teammates and independent thinkers. They're on the cutting edge of high tech and in the halls of history. If you want to make the world a brighter place, you can. And if you want to shine in your own way, you can. The spark you need is already inside you. Bring it to Baylor, where lights shine bright.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Bird Culchin Ford has been in Waco since 1936. Ford, the number one selling truck in Texas, 43 years running. And Bird Culchin Ford proudly supports high school football in Central Texas. And no better way to tailgate with a Ford than from Bird Culchin Ford, our sponsor of the Ford Tough Player of the Week. Locally owned dealership, online at bkford.com at 1701 West Loop 340 in Waco. The annual tent sale's going on right now.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is the Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac SicEm365 Radio Baylor Football Tailgate Show. Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
That West Virginia game now 34-10 over Kansas State with 7:40 left third quarter. And as both Craig and Paul told me to cool my jets about Clemson, the lead is just 2 now. 5 minutes, 20 seconds left. And Georgia or Boston College near midfield up by just 2
in the third quarter, mind you. I would suggest to people that they're, it's like people rooting for Alabama or Clemson. Like everybody wants, new blood at the top, but rooting for it to happen rapidly, it just I'll just tell you, with every program, Smokey, you and I know this intimately because of our fandom. It's just one day you wake up and it's not there anymore. It just happens. It feels like it's all at once, but it's probably a slower burn. But one day you're just going to wake up in the morning, it's going to be different. So somebody's going to be different. It could be a decade from now. People wanting Dabo Swinney to fall off.
Wait a minute. When did this happen for me?
See, now you're in the denial phase.
I am denial. I'm terribly into
denial.
But
it's just how it's going to be. I mean, that's how it is. We were saying during the break, people are rooting for Dabo Swinney to fall off, and they'll think that he'll hit the wall or something like that. I mean, he's still in his early 50s. I mean, he's a young coach.
Yes.
He's just right where he was when you name a coach. Bear Bryant, Bobby Bowden, Joe Paterno, Tom Osborne, Barry Switzer, right where they were when they started to get really, really good.
Yeah, he's in his prime. He's like a 27-year-old NFL star or a senior who has maybe a year left. 254-339-1122, the number to call. Stephen in Virginia on SicEm365 Radio. Stephen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, guys. I'm excited for this game today. I think it took me – I had to reset my expectations, and I think a bunch of us might need to, because I think trying to just make this fun and remember that this season doesn't even really count. I mean, I know whoever hoists the national championship trophy is going to claim that it counts, but everybody gets to come back anyway. That being said, though, if we are going to win one more game the rest of the year, I would like it to be this one.
Yeah, with Texas now out of the way, I mean, those are the 2 teams I think that most people would love to beat the most. And, yeah, I mean, definitely appreciate the thoughts, because I'm with you, man. I've kind of said this from time to time, and I can get caught up in, being frustrated about one thing or another. But, just seeing some of the reactions last weekend and, just how over the top, I have my own criticisms about the way they played, but that's just what they were. They were criticisms as far as being, over the, moon angry about them losing the game. I wasn't that at all. I expected them to lose last weekend. It was just a frustrating game to watch because of how they played.
We've never lost 2 games in a row before.
Yeah, exactly right, man. Exactly right. Yeah. So I think everybody does. I think you're right. Everybody needs to take a deep breath.
Stephen, buddy, be careful. Thank you. Go ahead.
I'll say that I took Brian Etheridge's, I got some steaks and some meat out here on the grill, and I'm inviting some people over to watch this bohemic, this terrible offensive football game. But
Yes.
I'm going to love it and hope they win.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people expected to be like, watching grass grow, watching paint dry, whatever. You know what? That means it'll be 37-33. It just takes somebody making a play early or whatever. I don't know. But, yeah, I think right now, if you're Baylor or TCU and I say, hey, your offense is going to score 33 but you lose, there might be a part of this, well, at least that shows that we might start doing things. No, you win 10-6 or whatever it might be would be pretty good as well. So, all right. Dave Aranda, Armstrong, Terrell Bernard, and Dylan Doyle. Do we have those that popped again? We've run this a couple of times during the week. So, Sunday evening, the story comes down that Treston Ebner and John Lovett, you guys kind of summarize it, that it appears as if those two are not happy for whatever reasons, personal, college, COVID, all the things what Dave Aranda brought up as well, but they're on their way pretty much out the door.
Yeah, they looked like they were going to opt out. On Sunday night, they had skipped practice. They were not there. Lockers were cleaned out. They had started to proceed out the door. After that story was reported by SicEm365 and Colt Barber and everyone who was a part of that, phone calls were made. The people got in a room and cooler heads prevailed, and John Lovett and Treston Ebner are back. One of the consequences of their actions, though, was that they're no longer single-digit guys. John Lovett, who's been a single-digit guy every year since he was a freshman, goes from number 7 to number 27, and Treston Ebner goes from number 1 to number 41, and they do have the opportunity to get those numbers back, but the senior leadership decided that maybe for now it would be best if they forfeited that and earned them back, because they did hang their team out to dry for 24 hours or so. I mean, that was what they were doing. They were not communicating with their team. They were not working things out. They got emotional. It happens to people. And they got back with the coaching staff. Everybody's on the same page now. And maybe some things were said that needed to be said all the way around. And the air is clear. And now some of the drama can be in the rear view. But that's where Lovett and Ebner were. And that was the situation they had to deal with on Sunday and part of Monday.
Yeah, I mean, it's over and done now for the most part. It seems like, we'll see how those guys play today and, just what the feeling is afterwards. I say that just because it seems like all is good. But, last week that was pretty abrupt. The two of them, all of a sudden looking like they were making their way out. So hopefully water under the bridge. It certainly appeared as though that was the case by Wednesday or so when we heard the players talk. And you know what? They're going to have to be accountable, and they're going to have to prove that they're all in. And that's not for them to prove to us. It's for them to prove to their teammates, and certainly their teammates weren't so upset that they were like, no, we don't want them back, even if they want to come back. And so that's good. But I also know there's a couple guys who are kind of like, well, bye. So you gotta get that figured out if you haven't figured it out already. I think it'll be fine. And I'm glad those guys decided to reverse course.
All right, so they did, and all of that transpired from Sunday morning through Monday when Dave Aranda made the first announcement that they would still be with the team. And then here's Wednesday. Dylan Doyle and Terrell Bernard, R.J. Sneed were the media session, the players available. And you couldn't have done this without any question, that the questions had to be asked to these players, to these 2-3 guys, and especially to Dylan Doyle and then also Terrell Bernard, is back-to-back. This is something that's back-to-back. Initially Dylan Doyle, then Terrell Bernard, about the players, Ebner, Lovett, and where the team was with all of that.
Yeah, so we had gotten the news about Treston and John, and I think generally there was a little bit of confusion, but talking to those guys, it was there were personal things going on that we hadn't considered, and we've talked about it and we moved on from it. I think as a team, we probably had our best practice of the year yesterday on Tuesday. It was a physical practice with a lot of energy. We termed Tuesdays competition Tuesdays, and I think it was just that. We brought the energy, and that was a lot of fun. And we're moving on to TCU now. It's not about one guy, and we're focused on getting better as a team. And I think we did that yesterday, which is it's our biggest priority. So.
Yeah, I think really it's nobody's perfect. That's the main thing. I mean, tensions run high, especially when things aren't going how we want. and we're not winning. But I think those guys have come back, and we all had meetings. We've had full team meetings, individual meetings, and they've explained their side. They kind of came out and said what they were thinking and what happened and where they were wrong. And we all came back and we all came together from it. And I think it's going to push us into this week. And I know everybody's put that behind us, and we're ready to go.
What they were thinking and where they were wrong. And then eventually here they are. And you hope that all of this that led from Sunday evening to where they are, that you peak at 2:30 against TCU in a game that starts in just a little over 45 minutes, TCU and Baylor. The history of this series. First of all, this is the first time, I think, in 35 days that Baylor's played at home.
Yep.
There was almost a chance it could have been 35 days before they played a game, but they did finally play Texas. 35 games since they beat Kansas 47-14. 116th meeting, the most played by either school against anybody, Baylor and TCU. TCU leads the series 55-53-7. They had won 4 straight before last year's triple overtime game, 29-23 at Amon Carter Stadium. Baylor has not defeated TCU since the historic 61-58 win in 2014. And I believe that's a span of about maybe 3 or 4 games.
You mean at home, right?
At home, at home, at McLean Stadium at home, because they obviously won last year. But they have not won at home at McLean Stadium since the debut year when they had the game of all the games of all time, 61-58.
Well, Baylor's had a scandal and 3 head coaches since then, and nothing's really changed at TCU. Nothing.
And that's why they are in love and beloved with Gary Patterson. No matter what Baylor fans may think or others may think, the guy has been sustaining success for 2 decades and was a part of the staff even before then. Now, they struggled last year. If they don't win today and they end up with a 3-6 team, yeah, there's a lot of circumstances around it. But, even the best of coaches start to feel a little bit of heat, disappointment, if they don't start winning again. So that's why you're going to have 2 teams that have their backs against the wall today. You would think that you hope for each of them that they bring out the best in each other. Bring out the best in each other. TCU, Craig, Oklahoma didn't blow them out, but they never were really challenged in Fort Worth, were they?
No, that was pretty much all Oklahoma. I mean, it was not like 60-0, but they were never really in doubt that they were going to win that game. And, they not only played pretty well offensively, but they played really well defensively versus TCU's offense, which we know how kind of Jekyll and Hyde that Oklahoma defense can be. But they were good to go last week. So, there's nothing. There's no Jalen Reagor on this team. There are some good skill guys, but there's nobody like him, quite frankly. Duggan is hot or cold, kind of like Charlie Brewer, quite frankly. Although, Brewer's got a bit more experience now at this point. Again, this is a winnable game for Baylor, so long as they play well. But if they do the same things they've done in the couple of losses they've had, missing field goals or starting off series, false start right out of the gate, or putting themselves into 2nd and 3rd and long when we know it's a struggle just to get 5 yards regularly for this team, then that's not going to bode well. So they're going to have to clean up the mistakes. I mean, make your field goals. I mean, 3 points matters a lot for a team that can't score very much. The defense needs to clean up its communication mistakes from last week, or else TCU can very well take advantage of that. And this is a game where if you have a big play like that, this is not the old school Art Briles in the Big 12, like playing Texas Tech or somebody where you're just like, oh, we'll get that one back. Not with these offenses. Like a 7-10 point deficit is like, oh my gosh, how are we going to climb this? So you got to be really smart to not give up some big explosive play due to a communication mistake like you did a couple of times last week. Take care of the football, the basics of playing football and winning football. That's what they need to do because they haven't covered all their basics or bases here lately.
Yeah, and just the tiny little things,
and have fun too.
I don't know how much after in the last 2 games that Baylor's really been able to have fun because they've had so many stops and starts, and it just Last week was probably not as much. I mean, it was probably great to be playing again, but you have to step right into a big rivalry game. There's a lot of pressure, and you just want to play well, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and so yeah, they need to have fun. They had a lot of drama. They've had a lot of that going on. Go out and play ball. Just go out and play ball and see what happens. This game is not going to be like, it would shock me if either team like approaches 30 points. If somebody's at 27, that must mean, to me, that means that late in the game, somebody's trying to come back and fumbles in their own territory, and the other team returns it with 38 seconds left. So it was a touchdown game, and then all of a sudden it becomes a 2-touchdown game because something bad happens during an attempted comeback. That's the way I see it here, and so you're going to have to do that. And Gary Patterson, he loves games like that. He didn't like 61-58. Other than the fact that they lost, just that kind of game in general gives Gary Patterson, who's a defensive guy, nightmares.
Well, I'll never forget what Phil Bennett said to me. I've never been more frustrated in my life as a defensive coach, but I'm happiest if I've ever been in my life. You know, because he had to take the personal part of it, the win, and separate it from what he controls, the defensive side of the football, and understand the big picture. They found a way to win the game despite they gave up 58 points.
Yeah.
Kind of 70, 63, 61, 58. Two different games where the scores are insane. One, you win it, and one, you lose it.
Well, and when you have a defense that was like that was, because of the way the offense was, as a defensive coordinator, you're never going to, take a deep breath. You're always going to be, white knuckling it the whole time because you just know that the team, that's the style. That's who you are. It's reckless and dangerous, especially at that point and when those offenses were coming into the league and coming into college football. Defensive coordinators hadn't had to do anything like that for a while. I mean, occasionally you play a Hal Mummy team or something like that, but that was once in a while. Most of the time, your teams were, trying to run the ball, and if they like Steve Spurrier, he was wide open on offense because he ran 4 wide receivers, but really, he wasn't doing anything different other than formations. his formations were different. He wasn't trying to snap it in 3 seconds every time. So that all those things that defenses had to adjust to at that point, 10, 11 years ago, was right when they were like, we have to change everything that we do.
Yeah, you're right. It's you can't feel comfortable. It's almost like how things are now in life because of COVID. It's about the time you feel pretty good about it. You never know what might happen. By the way, Michigan State took it on the chin last week against Rutgers, lead Michigan. And that's one of those hardball games that he has struggled against the Spartans like he has against Ohio State. And right now that game, late third quarter, Michigan State leads Michigan by 3.
What must it be like to be Jim Harbaugh? I mean, you have a lot of pressure to win at your alma mater and a lot of pressure that he puts on himself. I mean, the guy's intense. The dude is absolutely intense. But knowing that, look, if it doesn't work out at Michigan, when the NFL job's open next year, you can just say, hey, I'm back. And they'll be like, yep, come on.
There'll be a lot of guys that probably would like to have him as a part of the team. All right, a couple of other notes. We take you up for about another 10 minutes. Probably not going to have it. How long is the James Francis?
It's 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be right on the edge. So let's 254-339-1122. 254-339-1122. For a second, let's look at the high school weekend, and then we'll get into Baylor TCU with predictions of what we expect, including Armstrong. We'll want yours as well. Do we have one more break to take, Armstrong, or are we done?
Yeah, we're fine.
We're good? Okay. So we did the game last night, the Conley and China Spring game, and we did it, and it was phenomenal, 46-45 in overtime. Kavion Gaither, over 200 yards rushing. Emmanuel Abdallah, over 200 yards rushing. Major Bowden, over 200 yards rushing. Trey Wisner, the sophomore from Conley, had 120-something yards on like 7 carries, had 3 touchdowns, including a catch and a fumble recovery. And it's hard to explain. My voice is somewhat not gone, but it's on the edge because of how that fourth quarter seemed to be one haymaker by each team after another.
Yeah, that was the best game we've gotten to broadcast this year. It was a fun one to do. It was a fun one to watch. Both those teams are good. Both those teams have a lot of potential to beat a couple people in the playoffs, and I wouldn't want to play either one of them, especially teams that are so committed to the run and can decide that we're going to run it straight at you like that. Especially, China Spring, If they decide, like, we're just going to hold the ball from you and take what we're going to get with Major Bowden and Abdallah, I mean, that's tough. And Connolly fought back from 17 down. It's not something we'd seen them do all year. So that was a big moment for them because Trey Wisner needed some confidence. And so did the rest of the team to know that, look, if they're losing, they can come back and win. And they weren't down 17 in any of the games that they lost. They were down 7 to 10 points.
And 3,
and 3, and just couldn't do it. And so now, I mean, that's a much bigger mountain to climb. They did it.
Yeah, it was an incredible victory for them. That game was one where by halftime you were kind of feeling like maybe China Spring was going to run away with it. Just the feel of the game a little bit. Not run away and blow them out, but win comfortably. Because what was it, 17-7 at halftime?
Yep.
And China Spring just looked like they were kind of taking it over, especially with how long they can drain the clock with the offense that they run. But to Connolly's credit, got the big fumble early on that they needed. What was that, like?
The muff punt?
They got the muff punt, but they also had the fumble, the forced fumble. That was a huge play that Trey Wisner picked up.
On the fumble, the Brooks Williams, Ashton Brooks Williams forced it on Abdallah.
So, China Spring had a couple special teams. Well, they could have had about 7 special teams miscues last night, quite frankly. Got very fortunate on a bunch of bounces, but the one that did get away from them, the forced fumble, those plays mattered. And Connolly, that was an all-around team effort. I mean, they had the field goal at the very end when they're not a very reliable field goal kicking team from a career length for this kid, and he hits it and forces overtime.
Ralph Morales, yeah.
So, I mean, they needed everything from everybody, and they got it last night, and it was pretty awesome to see. And I was crushed for China Spring, obviously, because they had that one in their grasp. But, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose, and I was glad to see Connolly get a win like that. That was fun.
46-45 in overtime. Cameron Yost 4-5. They're not going to make the playoffs. They lost to McGregor. Had dug a big hole and tried to come back. They couldn't do anything about it. Midway got their first win, down 19-0 to Waco High. Ended up winning big, 63-37. Garrett Childers had a nice night for him. Some of the games that were the bang-bang games, Buffalo beat Lexington 38-37. That was interesting. Of course, Temple won Thursday night as well in some of the high school games that were the ones that really, how about Gatesville? In that district with all the teams, Salado, Connolly, and China Spring, it was who's going to win that 4th seed. You got to play Gates. You got to play Carthage. But Luke Howard, in his second year, they do make the playoffs. I just got a text from Donnie Osborne. He's fantastic, the head coach at Teague. They're struggling this year. Their running back, Herod, is pretty good. I said, if you beat Fairfield this week, do you get in? He goes, yes. We get the what's the word he used? The booby prize. Is that what it's called?
Sure.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I forgot. I'll try to go find it. They get to play Grandview. Oh. And that was maybe as good a game last night in the state of Texas as Grandview beat Glen Rose in a game that was just put together because they needed a game to play because of the cancellations, and Grandview wins the game 31-28. Yeah, the booby prize. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's an old-fashioned thing. That's way above.
That's from a bygone era.
Who?
A bygone era.
Yeah, both of our teams are from a bygone era. Both of our favorite teams as well. All right, let's summarize here. Armstrong, we start with you. Baylor, TCU. Your thoughts. You don't have to give a score. You can kind of just give us a summary. What do you think happens? If you want to give a score, that's great.
No, I think it's very low scoring. But before we go here, I made a graphic for our picks. It's the most boring graphic I ever made.
You're keeping track of this?
I'm keeping track of this, and it's a competition, but we've all picked the same exact thing every week.
We all picked Texas last week. No, you may have picked You picked Baylor, though, didn't you? No, it was Drake.
Everybody picked Texas last week, and the week before, everyone picked Baylor to beat
the West Virginia game got us, and that's a frustrating game looking back at it. We'd all be 3-0. All right, so Armstrong, Craig, Paul, I'm 2-1. We're all 2-1. So Armstrong, this here, TCU and Baylor.
I think Baylor, but I think no one scores over 20 points. But I got Baylor.
I'm going to take Baylor. I think it's going to be probably around where Armstrong said. I said in the mailbag earlier this week that I thought the winner would be the first at 20 or 21 points. Just leaving the extra point in there in case it's 3 touchdowns that are scored. But I think you're going to have to get 20 or 21 at the very least to win this game. And I don't know that it's going to be scored too much higher by either team, than that. So I'll take Baylor in a close game by a score or so, but I am taking the Bears.
Yeah, I'll take Baylor in a game that's, if you like high-flying offense, if you like this Clemson Boston College game, then this game is not this is not your style. It's not your vintage. I think this one's kind of a slobber knocker and it's ugly, and that's.
I don't know how the TCU kicking game has been, because if it comes down to a field goal right now, would either fan base be confident? It would be so nice if they could somehow not settle for a field goal, but if John Mayers could kick a field goal of any decent length between 35 and 40 yards just to get something
And like
going.
I said, to reiterate, I do think Baylor wins. I think Baylor is more talented than TCU right now by a nose. And I think that's the difference in the game, because if you watch them, they're extremely similar.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is normally when Patterson comes up with something like he did 2 years ago when they were dead to rights. But I think that Baylor believe that perhaps what's going on all week long, they've been able to have everybody together. I think maybe the way that they came back at the end against Texas to at least play better, I'll say Baylor 20, TCU 16.
By the way, Gary Patterson, I wrote an article about him on SicEm365.com. He hasn't blocked me yet, so.
Oh, very nice.
Wait a minute. Did he read the article?
I guess probably not. And I came at him harder than Craig ever did. I don't know what I have to do.
I'm just very heartbroken over not being able to listen to that great music of his. It's just.
Well, there you go. That's why.
Yeah. No. I mean, and to your point about Gary Patterson coming up, I mean. He doesn't have to come up with much. It's not like his offense is blazing hot or anything like that. So, I mean, unless he's got some offensive fireworks in store on his side of the things, and it's pretty much we know what's coming here in about 30 minutes from now.
We've seen Baylor have a chance to slice them.
Clemson just took the lead, by the way.
Slice them. ATN 17-yard touchdown. Slice them. And 2 years ago, boy, that was a tough day. That was the week I asked Matt Rule, are you tough enough to finish this thing off? And my God, the next week they beat Tech, and we know the next year, last year, what a great run they had. Now he's coaching in the NFL. All right, for Armstrong Sims, for Paul Catalina, Craig Smoke, thanks to Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, thanks to Muscle-Wise Nutrition, our sponsors of the pregame show, and as soon as it hits zero, the postgame show here with Drake Toll and J.D. Piquel. Good luck. Have a great afternoon. Good night or afternoon on SicEm365 Radio.
Kickoff from your own 20. Team that scores the 2 points gets it right back, and there goes Ebner.